Have you ever felt a quiet, persistent weight pressing down on you, as if your very thoughts and mistakes are evidence that you are failing at life? Society tells you that every misstep is shameful, that weakness is unacceptable, and that self-criticism is the only path to improvement. But this relentless punishment is not growth. It is a trap, keeping you distant from your own humanity and the lessons your life is quietly offering. The deeper truth, as Alan Watts teaches, is that being human is not something to correct or endure, but something to fully experience, with all your imperfections, hesitations, and contradictions. Every flaw and every failure carries a subtle message, a hidden potential for insight, understanding, and transformation. Imagine for a moment that releasing the harsh judgment you carry toward yourself is not surrender, but a doorway into clarity, freedom, and authentic strength. The mistakes you agonize over, the moments of doubt, the failures you replay in your mind, they are not signs that you are broken, but the very material life uses to shape you into someone capable of wisdom, resilience, and genuine growth. When you stop punishing yourself for being human, a strange thing begins to happen. Life's challenges start to feel less like obstacles and more like teachers, showing you paths you could never have imagined while trapped in shame and self-blame. By embracing this perspective, you discover that your imperfections are not liabilities, but the foundation of understanding and strength. Before we dive deeper, take a moment to subscribe, share, and comment, because by engaging, you help other men recognize that their struggles, doubts, and moments of self-criticism are not signs of weakness. Each interaction spreads the reflection, allowing others to see that the human experience, with all its flaws and failures, is not something to punish, but a vital, essential process that prepares them to live fully, authentically, and with true clarity. By the end of this reflection, you may begin to see your humanity not as a burden, but as the very source of insight, freedom, and strength that you have been searching for all along. Before awakening to the lessons of being human, the man often reacts to mistakes and failures with harsh judgment, believing that every misstep diminishes his value or defines his future. Each moment of doubt, every error at work, each failed interaction or relationship feels like confirmation that he is flawed beyond repair. He invests immense energy into correcting, hiding, or overcompensating for these perceived shortcomings, never realizing that this very struggle amplifies his suffering rather than alleviating it. The relentless inner critique creates a distorted mirror, reflecting only fear, shame, and inadequacy. In truth, what he interprets as weakness or failure is the raw material of transformation, the necessary friction life applies to reveal resilience, insight, and depth. As the man begins to see this hidden truth, he notices a subtle shift. The urge to punish himself weakens, replaced by curiosity and attention. Each failure is reframed as an opportunity to understand patterns of thought, emotion, and behavior that previously went unnoticed. Where once shame dominated, a quiet awareness begins to grow, allowing him to observe his humanity without judgment. This does not mean he stops caring or striving. It means he engages with life differently, moving through experiences with presence and reflection rather than panic or self-condemnation. The very act of noticing his mistakes without self-punishment cultivates clarity and inner strength that can never arise from denial or avoidance. Externally, people may perceive him as calmer, more detached, or even distant, misreading his quiet reflection for indifference or aloofness. Friends and colleagues may not understand why he no longer reacts to criticism with defensiveness or anxiety. Yet inside, a profound transformation is taking place. He is becoming grounded, independent, and honest in a way that only awareness and acceptance can produce. The tension between appearance and essence highlights a deeper power. The man is no longer bound by fear of judgment, by obsessive need for validation, or by the compulsion to perform perfectly. He moves through life with an authenticity that attracts the right connections, opens unexpected opportunities, and allows him to act decisively, guided by insight rather than impulse. This awakening also reshapes his perception of suffering itself. The discomfort, mistakes, and personal failures he once resisted now appear as indispensable teachers, each delivering lessons in patience, discernment, and resilience. He understands that life's challenges are not punishments but invitations to grow, and that embracing them consciously transforms each hardship into a stepping stone toward wisdom and strength. The man begins to see a paradox. The very experiences that once triggered shame or fear are the elements that build mastery, freedom, and a deeper sense of self. In learning to stop punishing himself for being human, he discovers that suffering, rather than being an enemy, is a guide leading him toward clarity, authenticity, and the life he has been seeking. As this awareness deepens, the man begins to deconstruct the foundations of his own behavior. He sees how much of his life was dictated by invisible agreements, the need to appear competent, the obsession with gaining approval, and the fear of rejection. Every relationship, every choice, every effort to control perception has been shaped by these silent contracts, and most of the time they sustain themselves through self-punishment. By observing this, he realizes that the weight he has been carrying is not imposed by others, but by his own unquestioned participation in these patterns. The moment he stops feeding the cycle of judgment and perfectionism, transformation begins naturally, like tension dissolving in water. Externally, people notice the change, but they misinterpret it. To those around him, he may seem distant, unconventional, or even arrogant because he no longer performs to meet expectations or seeks constant approval. Yet inside, he is more grounded than ever, free from the chains of self-condemnation and the relentless drive to prove his worth. This tension between appearance and essence is not a weakness, it is the mark of someone who has discovered an inner strength untouched by others' opinions. He moves deliberately, speaks with honesty, and interacts from a place of integrity, yet without the constant need to justify, explain, or overachieve. The man also begins to reinterpret familiar concepts in a profound way. What once seemed like loneliness becomes a space for reflection, creativity, and connection with his own values. What felt like failure transforms into a lesson, a signal that redirects him toward greater understanding and skill. Silence, hesitation, or restraint, previously interpreted as weakness, is now recognized as strength. The ability to pause, consider, and act from clarity rather than compulsion. Even desire and ambition are reframed. He learns to distinguish between shallow wants imposed by external pressures and authentic longings aligned with his own path. This reinterpretation allows him to navigate life with intention, embracing each moment without being consumed by fear, shame, or obligation. The consequences of this shift unfold gradually but profoundly. On the outside, he may still appear unusual or unconventional, yet internally he experiences freedom, clarity, and strength. The man who once punished himself for being human now moves through life with a quiet mastery, responding to challenges with presence rather than panic, making choices with insight rather than fear. Every mistake becomes informative, every setback a guide, and every moment of discomfort an opportunity to deepen understanding. In this way, the lessons of suffering and self-criticism, once destructive, are transformed into tools that shape resilience, wisdom, and authentic power. With the foundations of awareness firmly in place, the man begins to see power and desire in an entirely new light. Power is no longer something imposed, measured, or flaunted. It emerges quietly from the ability to act with clarity, presence, and integrity. The struggles he endured, the mistakes and moments of doubt have sharpened his perception, giving him the confidence to navigate life without needing to dominate or prove himself. What once appeared as weakness, the hesitations, the reflective pauses, the moments when he refrained from action, is now recognized as a cultivated strength, the kind that allows him to respond to circumstances with precision, calm, and insight. Strength is no longer visible to others in displays of force or recognition, yet it radiates unmistakably from his presence and choices. Desire is also transformed. The man notices that chasing external approval, wealth, or recognition previously left him restless and anxious. By contrast, embracing his humanity and understanding the lessons within suffering allows him to pursue authentic goals that resonate deeply with his own values. This alignment produces fulfillment that feels effortless, yet profoundly satisfying. He begins to recognize which ambitions are true to his path and which are merely echoes of societal expectations. Life flows differently when effort is directed by insight rather than fear, and each action, relationship, or decision becomes infused with meaning and purpose. The clarity gained from self-acceptance ensures that his energy is no longer squandered on proving worth or hiding flaws, but is channeled toward growth and contribution. Even failure itself is reinterpreted. Setbacks, mistakes, and criticism no longer trigger shame or self-condemnation. They are observed as feedback, guides to adjust course, deepen understanding, and refine his approach. Fear of judgment loses its grip, replaced by a measured confidence rooted in experience and reflection. The man who once punished himself for being human now uses the very lessons he endured as tools for decision-making, allowing him to act decisively without being paralyzed by doubt. Each encounter, challenge, or obstacle becomes an opportunity to exercise this new mastery, reinforcing the quiet power that comes from awareness and acceptance. Relationships also evolve in this transformation. Where he once sought validation or tried to control perception, he now engages with authenticity and presence. Connections deepen, not through performance, but through honesty and resonance. Those who align with his energy naturally gravitate toward him, while others who do not fall away without conflict. Social dynamics, previously a source of stress or obligation, become opportunities to exercise discernment and integrity. In every dimension, the man learns that embracing his humanity, with all its flaws, does not diminish him. It amplifies his influence, strengthens his presence, and allows him to live fully and powerfully. Finally, the paradox becomes evident. The very suffering and self-criticism he once believed to be obstacles are the tools that build mastery, insight, and freedom. What appeared as weakness is now revealed as strength. What felt like loss becomes liberation, and what once seemed like failure forms the foundation for authentic fulfillment. By letting go of punishment and embracing his humanity, the man discovers that life flows more naturally, that challenges are teachers, and that true power arises from self-acceptance, presence, and understanding rather than relentless striving or fear of inadequacy. As the man integrates these lessons into his daily life, the effects begin to ripple across every dimension of his existence. On the outside, he may appear calmer, more deliberate, even distant at times, as if untouched by the pressures and judgments that once dominated his world. Colleagues may misinterpret his composure for indifference, friends might see him as unusually quiet, and family could worry that he is withdrawing from ambition. Yet beneath this surface stillness lies a profound transformation, a quiet, unshakable authority formed from self-awareness, experience, and acceptance of his humanity. The tension between how others perceive him and who he truly has become becomes a source of subtle power, a reflection of the inner mastery that only emerges when a man ceases to punish himself for being human. Internally, his mind operates differently. Where anxiety, guilt, and self-doubt once dominated, clarity, presence, and calm now guide his choices. Decisions that were previously stressful or overwhelming are now approached with insight and discernment. The energy he once wasted on self-criticism and compulsion is now available for meaningful action, creativity, and reflection. Life's challenges, instead of triggering fear or shame, serve as signals and lessons, shaping him further with every experience. What once felt like obstacles are now opportunities, and the very hardships he endured become instruments that cultivate resilience, wisdom, and a quiet, potent strength. The man's relationships shift as well. Interactions are no longer driven by the need to impress, validate, or perform. He engages from authenticity and presence, and this naturally deepens bonds with those who resonate with his energy while letting go of superficial or draining connections. The tension between others' expectations and his true self no longer dictates his behavior. Instead, he responds deliberately, grounded in his own values. Even social judgments or criticism, once sources of stress, are now seen as external noise, informative perhaps, but never defining his sense of worth. His influence grows quietly, through example, presence, and clarity, rather than through effortful persuasion or striving. On a larger scale, the man notices that opportunities unfold more effortlessly. The clarity and insight gained from embracing his humanity allow him to identify paths and make choices with precision, navigating challenges with minimal wasted effort. Actions become intentional rather than reactive, and outcomes are guided by awareness instead of compulsion. Success, influence, and fulfillment begin to emerge naturally, not as the product of frantic striving, but as the consequence of alignment, discernment, and self-acceptance. Life, once felt as a relentless struggle, begins to flow with a rhythm that matches his own, creating momentum that feels effortless yet deeply powerful. Ultimately, the man recognizes the paradox that Alan Watts often described. What once seemed like suffering, failure, or weakness is revealed as the very force that prepared him for mastery, freedom, and authentic fulfillment. The consequences of self-punishment dissolve, replaced by resilience, clarity, and a sense of wholeness. On the outside, he may appear distant or unconventional. On the inside, he is grounded, strong, and fully present. Every lesson learned, every hardship endured, and every moment of reflection contributes to the formation of a life lived with purpose, awareness, and power, showing that embracing humanity is the true path to mastery rather than the obstacle it once seemed. With these insights fully integrating into his awareness, the man begins to perceive desire, ambition, and fulfillment through a completely different lens. Where he once chased approval, recognition, or superficial markers of success, he now seeks alignment with his own values, clarity of purpose, and engagement in endeavors that resonate with his authentic self. The goals he pursues are no longer dictated by external expectations or fear of judgment. Instead, they flow naturally from his understanding of what truly matters. This shift transforms the way he invests his energy, allowing him to act deliberately and effectively while preserving the calm and presence that he has cultivated through acceptance of his humanity. Even ambition is redefined. The man sees that striving without awareness often leads to exhaustion, frustration, and disconnection, while pursuing with insight, presence, and intention produces momentum that feels effortless yet deeply impactful. Opportunities that once seemed inaccessible now appear with clarity, and decisions that previously brought stress or indecision are approached with quiet confidence. The lessons of past failures and self-punishment inform his choices, giving him the discernment to distinguish between pursuits that nurture growth and those that simply distract or drain. In this way, suffering, mistakes, and self-criticism are no longer obstacles but tools that sharpen judgment, focus, and resilience, Relationships, too, continue to evolve under this new perspective. The man engages with authenticity and presence rather than seeking approval, and his interactions deepen as a result. He attracts connections aligned with his energy and values while naturally releasing interactions that are superficial or draining. Social judgment no longer dictates behavior. External opinions are informative but not authoritative. He moves confidently within these dynamics, balancing empathy, honesty, and discernment, demonstrating that embracing humanity and letting go of self-punishment strengthens not only the self, but also the quality of every relationship. Finally, the paradox becomes clear. What once seemed like weakness, failure, or loss is revealed as the very foundation of strength, mastery, and fulfillment. The man realizes that clarity, power, and freedom do not come from avoiding mistakes or punishing imperfection, but from engaging fully with life, learning from hardship, and embracing his humanity. By doing so, he experiences life with momentum, purpose, and insight, navigating challenges with calm authority and attracting outcomes that are both authentic and meaningful. Suffering, once a source of pain, is now recognized as a silent teacher guiding him toward effortless mastery, authentic desire, and genuine fulfillment. What once seemed like isolation, struggle, or failure now reveals itself as the very source of clarity, strength, and freedom. The man who appeared distant, flawed, or overwhelmed is in truth grounded, whole, and capable of navigating life with insight, presence, and purpose. The suffering he endured, the mistakes, doubts, and moments of shame was never punishment but preparation, shaping resilience, sharpening discernment, and awakening a power that comfort alone could never provide. What once looked like weakness becomes strength. What felt like loss becomes liberation, and what appeared as failure becomes the foundation for authentic mastery, wisdom, and fulfillment. He now moves through the world deliberately, acting with awareness and intention, free from the compulsions of judgment, self-criticism, or the constant need to prove himself. Relationships deepen naturally. Connections resonate with authenticity, and opportunities flow more effortlessly because his energy is aligned rather than wasted on fear or shame. Even the judgments of others, once a source of anxiety, are now experienced as background noise, informative but incapable of shaking his inner balance. The paradox is undeniable. The experiences that once caused pain, regret, or shame are precisely what have prepared him to live fully, powerfully, and authentically. In this awakening, the man understands that embracing his humanity, imperfections included, is the key to clarity, freedom, and real influence. Every misstep, every moment of self-doubt, every failure he endured has been a teacher, guiding him toward mastery of self and life. He is no longer defined by what he endured, but by how he integrated it, how he acted with awareness, and how he moves forward with quiet authority. If this reflection resonates with you, subscribe for more insights, share this message with someone who may need it, and comment with your own experiences or thoughts, knowing that each voice contributes to a community where men can see that suffering, imperfection, and struggle are not enemies, but the very forces that cultivate strength, clarity, and authentic mastery.